Hey friends, today we are hanging out with Rachel Brooks, who is a fitness and lifestyle entrepreneur, best-selling author of Chasing Perfection, host of the Confident Woman podcast, and founder and creator of the Confident Woman Collective, as well as I Am Athletics. As a former bodybuilding bikini competitor and champion, Rachel has taken years of fears, failures, setbacks, and extreme loss and come forward to create simple yet powerful lessons that can help women transform their lives to become their best and their most confident selves. As part of her mission, she empowers women to get fit from within by challenging and inspiring them to go beyond their limiting beliefs, redefine who they are, and step into what they're created to be. Confident women. Yes, we are. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, thank you for having me. That's I love just kind of like summarizing that entire bio, and it really is, for a passion of mine is to really help empower women to become their best, most confident selves. And so how we empower others is that we have to first empower ourselves. So everything I do is really meant to extract that confident woman that is either dormant inside or just ready to unleash and really step into their power and give the way to, pave the way for themselves as well as others. And so it's just a really cool journey that I have been on my own for many years. And
forever, right? I think becoming who we are starts in childhood when we pick up those limiting beliefs, and then we don't know why we become who we become. And then for some of us that, have the interest or the knack or the human design or whatever thing, that sleeping giant within us that gets loud enough to say like, hey, let's get curious about this. Let's figure out for ourselves. And then people like you take it that step further to think about how can I make this impact for other people. So Rachel, I'm curious for you, if I always love asking this question. If you were the second grader who wrote on the little homework sheet what you want to be when you grow up, did you write the confident woman? Or, how did you tell us kind of the backstory and maybe what you were in previous lives to bring you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's funny because we actually just did a podcast episode of this actually last night. So it's very timely and fresh on my mind. But,
Awesome.
when we look at our journeys, I don't think that it's really defined at the beginning, but yet we can go back to the beginning to see the definition of what it is and who we are.
Yeah,
so
that's always connect when you're looking back.
Exactly. Yeah. And for me personally, I love self-reflection and just, I've always been like that internalizer where I take a lot of the world in and I process it. And this is how I make sense of it. It's just, it's unique to me and what works for me. And when I was starting my journey, like my personal growth and development journey that has really led me to where I'm at today, it was going backwards. I had to take those steps back. And every time I took a step backwards, it connected me to a different time in my life that connected me to another time in my life and so on. So it's really going back to basics, the very beginning, so that you could start moving forward in your life with confidence and clarity. So to answer your question, I mean, when I was a second grader, I didn't even know probably how to spell the word confident. It's definitely not on my vocabulary. It wasn't on my spelling list for the week. Yeah. But in second grade, or even thereabouts, I just remember, I was a young kid that was just playing with my dolls. I'd probably, I'd play house. I'd play with my Barbies and Matchbox cars and go, outside hiking and like playing in the dirt and all that stuff. So yeah. It was a sense of freedom, but at that time it's something as we continue growing, we basically become confines into this imprisonment. Yeah. So the second grader me craved that freedom. Mm-hmm. So then, fast forward to a couple years later, I, as a young kid, would get my allowance, and we didn't have much as far as, financial, income to allow for like extra snacks and treats and all the little extras beyond, right? So as a kid, I would save my allowance and I would go to the store and I would buy like my 6-pack of Little Debbie's Swiss roll.
Yes. The ones with like the circle ones with like this.
Yes. And you can peel off the chocolate on the outside and it
Yes.
took like forever. Yeah.
Those are my favorite little Debbie's. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, back in the day, it wasn't much, but it was something that I bought as a treat with my allowance. And then when I came home, I saw my brothers were like, give me one, I want one. And I started selling them to my family and friends. And
see, this is little entrepreneurs. They sometimes start like doing those things, selling the candy bar, selling to your brother. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you think it's like these little things are just so insignificant. Like, why does that matter? Because in that moment, when I look back at this, I was like, I already had the creative entrepreneurial spirit within me. Mm-hmm. I saw a need and I filled it. I took an opportunity and I ran with it. And I started looking at these other memories that were very sharp in my mind. And then it led me to, I was creating, I would take sketches and design outfits and apparel and like fashion designer things. And I had no knowledge and no experience. And I really didn't grow up with like a feminine influence. So it's like, I was just modeling what I saw in these magazines. And at that time, my grandmother had given me a little art book and it had the outlines of the women. And I would just sketch and design my own clothing and everything. So it was really fun for me because it was creative. It was an expression. It was art. Then I wanted to, I didn't really excel at school per se, because a lot of the subjects didn't interest me, but there was one that really did stand out, and that was biology. So I wanted to become a biology teacher because it was fascinating. And I remember 2 weeks before.
And you knew a lot of teachers, right? Like I remember being like, I'm going to be an English teacher because I saw teachers all day, every day. I didn't think of like, oh, you could be a course creator or you could be a fitness instructor. No, it was like, I saw was teachers. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, you basically, your reality is what you're exposed to. And so obviously I had a fascination with biology. I thought being a teacher was pretty cool because you get the summers off. And I mean, right? Here I am. There's a freedom aspect of it, right? So when we start connecting those dots, we see how it landed to where we're at. So anyway, 2 weeks before college was supposed to happen, I completely switched my major and went into business and marketing and psychology. And it just really opened my eyes to the curiosity that I've always had inside of me, is like, what makes people do what they do? I was fascinated by the biology aspect of it, but then you tap into the psychology and then the marketing and then product development and launches and all the stuff that we have now. Of course, I'm dating myself because we didn't even have internet back in the day when I was a young kid. And so, obviously in college I did, but it was something that, we don't have what we have now. So, that was kind of like where it started. The seed was planted, but I finished up my degree and I was working at this time in a Fortune 500 company for nearly 10 years and had advanced all the way up to the top, starting at the very bottom, worked myself up to the top position that I could.
What happened to freedom? How was that?
This is the freedom. I said, there's nowhere else to go from here. And there's no challenge, there's no growth, there's no opportunity. I need something else that gives me a sense of me, right? Like what I want. And so I had to take that step and say, okay, I could risk a well-paying job that was financially secure. I've been there for 10 years. I got advancements. I got the, accolades, success, all that stuff. Right. And I said, but this isn't where I want to be. And the trade-off was you throw that all away to take a risk into something that's completely, entirely unknown. And so at that time,
right here, just for a second, because again, in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's the story, it's all in our head, right? We can speak it out. But what did that actually look or feel like? That moment of like, I could keep doing this, but I know I'm not supposed to, or like, it's not in alignment anymore. Like, can you take us back to that moment and how you like really discovered and decided that your truth was different than corporate?
Yeah. And to be honest, like it was making me physically and mentally and emotionally just ill.
Yeah.
I felt so stunted, so limited, so held back that I resented going to work each day. There was no sense of me. It was just, I'm going through the motions to trade my time and my freedom to, work between these, start time and end time to collect a paycheck that I would then come home and just be so exhausted and just so, I don't want this life.
Yeah.
But when I looked at it, it's like, okay, but you're throwing away all that stuff because you don't know what the next step's going to be. And I said, at this point, anything is better than how it makes me feel. And I don't want to feel what I felt there. And so
the energy, your top priority. And I think that's such a permission slip for people listening, that like your energy, the ease or dis-ease in your body is such a real cue. And I have a feeling that you and I might be similar in this ways, knowing your fitness background, that like when we listen to our body instead of our head, we can make powerful decisions, not always easy decisions, not always obvious decisions, but powerful ones. Because when I was working in my cubicle and I was like wrapped up in an eating disorder and like just like mixed up, right? And like so out of alignment, it was like yoga and mindfulness that got me beyond the game that I had been playing in my head and into like my being. And it wasn't until I had some of those experiences, which I'm curious, you know, again, knowing your fitness background, would imagine you might have some story around that. Is that it doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always make sense that like I had this epiphany in yoga, I went in, I quit my day job, and then everything opened up. Like that doesn't make sense. You know, like you said, looking backwards, maybe I can find those common threads. So I'm curious for you, like when you made that decision, you know, my energy is more important than my paycheck. Did things start to open up for you? What shifts came in that time for you?
Yeah, I would say things started to open up because an opportunity to start working at home with a startup online marketing company. But the trade-off again was I've never worked at home. Like, can I set boundaries? Do I have those? Do I have that, that in me? The trade-off was obviously a huge, huge pay cut, no security, no stability, no, 401s, profit sharing, all the stuff that they, I feel like locks you in. But again, I had to outweigh the trade-off and said, okay, well, at least I know over here, I don't want it, but yeah, what is possible on this side. So I started working with them for a few years and really just grew the company to exponential rates. I ended up taking over part of my shares of the company to turn it into my own online marketing companies as well. But again, being in that space, it was really burning me out. So this kind of, it led me into what is something that I am passionate about, that I could tie in all of my experience and my skill sets and things that I truly love and enjoy doing. So as I was working in the midst of this, so that's kind of like my professional side, but we'll tie it back in with my personal side. Me personally, for decades, I had struggled with body image, body dysmorphia, eating disorder, self-image, self-esteem, all of this stuff. And so how I found my way was through proving my work and my worth. Yeah. And through that was really the defining moment when I was writing my book, Chasing Perfection. The title itself is so suited for the journey to healing, fitness, and self-love, because when I took this whole overarching like theme of my life, it had always been to work harder, do more, push more, extremes, all the things to go all out. But yet it was costing me my livelihood, my sanity, my emotional well-being, my mental well-being. Physically, I was just, I didn't even feel well. And so when I started addressing those areas that were holding me back, and I said, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I just want this race to end. How can I get to where I want to be personally, so that at least, I could feel a little bit better in my professional life as well. And so that I started looking at, after having done all the things, right? I mean, if you've been on this decades long journey, you've done the diets, the exercises, the gadgets, gizmos, whatever it was. I was like the perfect candidate, like, hey, I'll do that. Yeah, get me out of this pain point as quickly as possible, which led me into my first fitness competition back in 2012. And because I did it for all the wrong reasons, of course, you can probably guess it didn't pan out. And it really had such a negative setback on my whole life, because at this point, it was something I couldn't excel at. I couldn't grasp it. And I was stuck back at this defeatist, like in my defeatist mentality of like, but I can excel over here and I get rewarded and I have the successes and accolades and positions and all the things. Why can't I figure this part out? So after the show, I actually had ruptured my disc and was in basically timeout for like 2 years because I couldn't do any of the things that I was starting to fall in love with, which then helped me build that foundation. So fast forward to 2014, I finally said, I have to get out of my own way. I have to do something different that I hadn't done before. And obviously a fitness competition was something I hadn't done before, but that didn't pan out. So in 2014, I hired my first fitness coach and we started working together. And because I got out of my own way, asked for help, we were now collectively able to work together and provide a plan for my nutrition, for my exercise. And as I was going, I started to feel like these tiny like moments of progress. And the progress started to be the focal point instead of the perfection. Like, but if I look like X, Y, and Z, and if I have all these X, Y, and Z's, then I could do all these things. It shifted my perspective to focus on the small successes and small wins.
Yeah.
And so confidence.
This is why I love fitness as well, is because it's such a metaphor for everything else.
Everything.
Yeah. So
truly.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like the nuggets of wisdom that you have gleaned and you now teach from that first go around? You said something like, I did it for the wrong reason, so of course it didn't work. Like, what are some of those like wisdom pieces that we might be able to even apply to business from that?
Yeah. So hiring this coach and laying the foundational aspects of it had led me to compete again. And so the competition stage was really this metaphor for what other stages that we're working towards to achieve or to define or to really step into. So I love tying back into the fitness into my business because it really is, like you said, it's an analogy that you can use across the board. So the tidbits that I had really started to focus on was creating a foundation. We have to have, stepping stones in place so we know the next step. But really, the biggest things that I could say of that takeaway moment to define like self that also became a better version of me in my personal or professional life were, having a grounded sense of self-awareness. Like I said prior, I was all over the place. I didn't even know who I was or where to begin. I didn't really have a defining, what at least I wanted. So self-awareness, gratitude was such a huge game changer because when we're so focused externally of the wanting and desiring and going after those things, well, if we're not being grateful for what we currently have, we can't have contentment. We're trying to ask for more out of discontentment, and that's a big disalignment, which then we don't get what we ask for because we're not open and ready to receive it. And then the third would be forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves for who and what we were so that we can start making those small changes and to really own this new version of you and step into her. Whatever that looks like and feels like is for that woman. So these were some of the personal things that I did for me that really propelled not only my fitness career, but also transitioned into now, because I have this online marketing, I have my fitness competitions. And I said, now that I've got the professional and the personal kind of nailed down, I need to do something about this so that I can help other women who are in the same position and predicament that I was then in, and provide these tools and resources and stepping stones, and as well as community and support to help women do that as well. And so this was the start of what basically I'd read at the beginning. Why I do what I do is because I was there and it was a really bad experience, or I didn't have the support, I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the know-how, the insight. And you can stretch yourself and collect, everything out there in the internet now. But yet, if you don't apply the practicals and the application, all you did was just receive a bunch of information. You don't know what to do with it. And now you've probably spiraled more out of control with overwhelm.
Yeah. And to ground that into like practice, I think those three things you just said are wound into something that I've learned this year, right? Because I, like you, am like always on to the next thing. Like, okay, cool, I did that, but I could do it better, or I could do more. I should just keep going. But like, I reached 100 people, but like, what if we reach it? Oh my gosh, right? And so this year, I've been really conscious about every quarter writing down 100 things I'm proud of that, like in the last 90 days, because that's generally what a quarter looks like. In the last 90 days, what are 100 things I'm proud of? Some of them are like, I didn't lose my keys, stuff like that, because I want to stretch myself to like really focus on the things that I've already achieved. Because from that place of like gratitude, worthiness, progress, I am having so much more fun. And it's like, I have come so far. And to me, it was such a losing game of like always burnt out, not always burnt out, but just like, I never did enough. I'm always so hard on myself. I have to do more. And it's like, whoa. And I might say like Mexico and just like the slower pace of life has really helped me just like sit and dwell and be in what has already been accomplished. Because from that place, like you said, like a totally different intention of why I'm doing more or why I want to share this with others. It's not to, like you said, like prove my worthiness by doing more. It's like, oh, I already accomplished a lot, right? And so I love that parable, right? That we can bring right into our business or any goal, right? If you want to crush a fitness goal or a business goal, start by looking at what you've already accomplished to lay the foundation for what you want to do next.
Right. And I think it's so important, because I like looking at it, I think we can all agree, we all want this freedom to be our authentic selves, freedom to be, financially free, to be anxiety free, fear free, like all these things. There's a sense of freedom because what we hold on to holds tighter onto us. And that, we give up pieces of our power and control, but yet we crave power and control in that sense, because we feel like our life is spinning out of control and we're powerless, right? Because we've given that away. So when we look at it from that perspective, tying in that fitness aspect of it, really doing the inner work, how much more your businesses will be thriving, your relationships will be thriving. But yet we can look at it and be like, nah, those are good, but yet they're only going to go as far as you are capable of. So we need to outgrow these different versions of ourselves. And so really that self-reflection and internalization allows us to dig deeper into these different stages that we're in personally. And then we up level to the next level in the business, into our relationships, in just even personally. So, I don't compete anymore because I've done all the stuff that I needed to do. And I've actually set myself free because I don't struggle with body dysmorphia, eating disorders, yo-yo dieting, extremes, self-image, self-acceptance, and all that stuff. I mean, there's bouts of it, but nowhere near does it consume me that it had consumed for decades upon, because it was something that I held so deeply inside that I thought there was something wrong with me. And so I needed to fix that. But yet, once you realize there's nothing wrong with you, you can really start that process of healing. And so that's really
right. I'm with you. Like it never totally goes away where it's like, oh, I don't, like I'm the same, right? So like I did all the things, anorexia, then binge eating, then orthorexia, like over exercising, injuries galore. And like, I still notice myself in stressful moments feeling like I got to work out more. Like that's my stress relief, right? And now it's not that it goes away. Like I still use that as an outlet or as a vice in some ways, but it's like, is that actually going to fuel me today, or do I actually need a nap? And so I think this is true for anything, any trauma that you're healing or like any journey that you're on. It's like, not that you're just going to erase it. And it's like, oh, that never even happened to me. Like I've always been, no, it's like you reframe and you get to use those things, not for your detriment, but for your growth and your opportunity. I work with a lot of women who are the same as us, that they're type A, they're achiever, they focus, they want to be a big deal in the world. And at some point you mentioned magazines in your childhood, in our society, I think there's this idea that, having the perfect body means that you're a certain thing, right? Your worthiness is in your physicalness in a lot of our media and society right now. And so whatever that thing is, for some people it's over exercising, for some people it's drugs, or like whatever that thing is, like that is your window of awareness. And you can either keep banging your head against it, like you said at the beginning, like, what is wrong with me? Why am I like this? Or you can look into it with curiosity and self-love and all the things you're saying, Rachel, to start using it for your benefit, for your growth, instead of holding yourself back, being caught in that detrimental head game.
Yeah. And I think what you just said it's very, it's exactly, what my book is about, in that sense of like chasing perfection. People could say, but I'm not a perfectionist. listen, we're all chasing something. It doesn't matter what it is. This is just a metaphor. And, you know, my story is just it's a stage that we're all on a stage of something that we're chasing. So whether we're chasing perfection, we're chasing the next zero on our bank account, the next lover, the next, you know, the next occupation, whatever that is, we're all chasing after something, because deep down inside, there's that value, or that sense that we have to prove something to prove that we're enough. And is it enough? Therefore, I am enough. And so when we look at this chase, you got to ask yourself those questions. What is it I'm really after, and why does it matter? So in Chasing Perfection, you know, the subtitle of that is A Journey to Healing, Fitness, and Self-Love. And so, of course, I dive deep into, you know, where I was to where like the pivotal moment to really step into, you know, myself, but yet all of the book is just laid out with like practicals, tips, strategies. You know, it's a vulnerable share. And I feel like that was really the biggest thing that makes women connect, is that they see themselves in these, because we're all more alike than we are different. And the beauty is, it's like when one person comes up and shares their story, it gives permission for others to do the same. So whether you're in fitness or you're chasing in your business, listen, I've done all that stuff from, you know, personal, professional to relational, all these different areas. But yet the fitness was really the defining moment for me, because it started with the one thing I didn't like, myself. I'd look in the mirror and be like, I don't like her. I don't like this body I'm in. This body has been used, bruised, and, you know, damaged, broken, whatever it is. And I wanted to change that outside, because I thought if I could change the outside, the inside would match that. And then I could feel, you know, at peace, and I could finally find this rest after this long chase.
Yeah. I totally relate. And I think what you're saying is so true, is like in business too, we think we're going to like break our back so we get this perfect business. And then once the business is figured out, everything else in our life will work. So I love the question you posed. I jotted this down. What am I really after, and why does it matter? I think that is a write it down, pull out your journal piece, whether it's fitness, business, relationships, like that is a nugget to run with. Pun intended. Right. Run, right? Chase, run. Go with it.
Don't chase. Don't do the chase. But also, you know, to kind of go on to that question, it's not so much about, you know, what are you chasing after, but also the question might be, well, maybe I'm not chasing after, but what are you running from? So we can look at it twofold. So you might not be chasing towards something yet because you're being held back by something else. So define it. Look both ways, forward and backwards, but you can't move forward if you haven't addressed what's in the back. So check your rearview mirror and just keep checking it, but don't look back. Don't use that as your guidance. It's just, okay, oh, remember that one time I did that one thing. Oh, okay. So now I know not to do it. And, you know, you correct course and move forward with confidence and ease, because now you actually have, you know, the experience in your tool belt that says, oh, when that thing happened, I now know how to correct it. And so it's just equipping you, right? Your rear view is it's just another tool.
Yeah.
But don't live there. We don't live there.
For people who are listening and they're like, oh, I am so feeling the hustle in my business right now. I am chasing that next zero in my bank account, like Rachel said, or I am so hard on myself and not really sure why. Like people who are like, I'm seeing myself in this. Rachel, where can they continue this conversation with you? Grab your book, do all the things. Like, how can people stay connected with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media platforms at I am Rachel Brooks, as well as my website, iamrachelbrooks.com. And if you go there, I have a free little gift, you know, it's an opt-in, because I really want to help extract that confident woman that lies dormant inside, or at least just let her unleash and roar, right? Because really the confidence is in there. It's up for us to discover it. And so for, you know, sometimes we get a little bit buried in life, right? So let's neatly unpack that and step into who we're created to be, the confident woman.
Confident and roar. I love that. I am rachelbrooks.com. You said, did you also have a freebie or something you wanted them to go grab?
Yep. Yes. So that is at iamrachelbrooks.com/self-confidence.
Oof, self-confidence. Great thing to type into your URL bar now. We'll make sure those links are in the show notes below as well. Thank you so much, confident woman, Rachel Brooks. We appreciate you. And listeners, I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.